Hey guys, Sandy here. Welcome back to my channel. Today's sketch is this one, and it's got some strips, a couple photos, and I decided what I was going to do was pull out some of these kind of funky ground fireworks photos and use a couple of those. And then I'm using this Paige Evans number 13 paper. It does have this beautiful blue on blue, but I think that might be a little bit too much. So I'm gonna go with the pink instead with these little pops of color. And I pulled out a couple legendary papers and then a couple papers from Chamel's 6x8 paper pads. So let's see what I can do. All right, so I'm going to start out with the fireworks stencil from Scrapping Reflections, and I'm going to go ahead and use some Lagoon ink from Close to My Heart, and of course I'm using my Pink and Main blender brush. So this blender brush is the one that I use just for teal colors, and that's because I have one for green and I have one for blue, and you guys know teal is just one of those colors that sometimes it can go blue, sometimes it can go green, and I don't want it to be like influenced by a green or a blue blender brush. So I am not going to make you watch me blend ink through the entire stencil, but I do it over the entire stencil. So I just go ahead and keep on blending until I get a nice dark color. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that off. I love the stencil reveal. And you saw how I shook the stencil a little bit. You know, I probably should have put my purple tape down on more than one side of the stencil to kind of give it a little bit more stability. I am going to take these 6x8 papers and I'm going to cut them into 2 1/4 inch strips. And I figured that will give me a decent amount of the pattern, but it will also won't be so large so that I can make my photos a pretty good size. I do decide to go with the bluer side of that striped paper from Coco Vanilla Studio Legendary. And at this point, I'm trying to figure out which way I'm going to place these strips of paper. So which way the colors are going to look and just be the best. And before I put any glazes or glitter on top of them, I think that I'm going to separate the two out that have a white background. In all actuality, once I get my glitter glazes on the papers, those two get put next to each other. So I'm using a Brutus Monroe slimline stencil, and it's designed for slimline cards, but nobody says that you have to just use it for slimline cards. And I'm also using Glitter Glaze in Fallen Snow, and these are the new Glitter Glaze jars. There's a 1/2 ounce more of the Glitter Glaze in each jar, and it has this little kind of plastic stopper at the top, and that helps keep the moisture into your glitter glaze so they won't dry up as quickly. And it's got a cool metal screw top lid now. So I'm just going to set that off to the side so that it can dry, because look at that, it's gorgeous, isn't it? It's absolutely gorgeous. And then I grab my, it's got to be my favorite stencil of all time, you guys, because I use it all the time. It's the All-Star stencil, also from Scrapping Reflections, and I just decided to place my stencil over this pattern piece of paper, with the smaller stars being the ones that I'm going to put the glitter glaze through. So now I'm grabbing Nouveau, and it's this gorgeous teal color, and I wanted something that was going to be dark enough to show up against the wood grain. I definitely wanted contrast, because if I would have if I would have put a white glitter glaze on top of this, it would not have had such a high contrast, and that's definitely what I want it to have. So I am putting it on a little bit thick, and that's just because I don't want you to really see the wood grain through this glimmer paste. I think that's what Nouveau calls theirs, is glimmer paste. Let's pull it out and see. What do they call it? Yep, glimmer paste. Everybody calls it a little bit something different. I guess it's because they all want you to think that their glitter is special, but glitter paste, glimmer glaze, glitz, you name it, all those kinds, they all have sparkle and shine. My favorite by far is the Brutus Monroe Glitter Glaze. I just think it goes on so smoothly. It dries great. The glitter doesn't come loose in it once it dries. It's just gorgeous. So now I'm going to go for my third strip of paper, and I'm using another Scrapping Reflection stencil. I'm going to use the Mandala #1. I want to think this is the first stencil. And I'm just going to place it across the page right here. So I am using some basic color copy paper. I'm not using anything fancy, so I'm not like wasting any paper, you guys. So don't worry about that. And then I'm going to take another Brutus Monroe Glitter Glaze and go over the stencil, and I think I'm using raspberry, and I'm almost out of the raspberry, so I will be able to probably get one more project out of it, and then there will be no more raspberry glitter glaze in my collection, which, you know, is good. So as I use up the glitter glazes and get more space in my little glitter glaze tray, that just means I get to buy more, so that's exciting. Now I am going to put a little bit of a thicker line of glitter glaze on this one as well. And that's just because I don't want it to be transparent. I really don't want you to be able to see through the glazes that I'm using. I'm going to go ahead and put these bad boys down. They're going to dry, and then I'm going to be back and be ready to scrapbook this. So I have these strips of paper, and they've definitely been pizzazzed up with the shining, shimmering, splendid that's all over them. But I decided that I needed something a little bit more. They kind of blended together and got lost in each other, so I decided to use some more black cardstock. And since my strips of paper are 2 1/4 inches wide, I cut strips of cardstock that were 2 1/2 inches wide. And what that's going to do is give me just a small black border around the strips. And then I just went ahead and trimmed off the one edge on the vertical edge. Now, I did not do any kind of mixed media, any kind of glitter paste on the striped paper, this diagonal striped one. And that's because I figured that one would be the one that the title is going to go onto, and I would be covering up a good bit of it anyway. And plus, I'm not putting any glitter glaze in the background of my layout, so I wanted something in the foreground that wasn't sparkly as well. I wanted something that had a little bit of a plainness to it. So here is where I'm trying to figure out how I want my strips of paper to go. And originally I was going to put the 2 teal pieces close to each other. But you know what? I decided that that really wasn't the best look. I like it better in a different way. So I grab my photos, and these are not the best photos. We've definitely taken better ground fireworks photos than these. So I don't mind cutting them up. I am going to cut them into 3 by 3 squares. And I know that cutting them into 3 by 3 squares means that all 3 photos are not going to fit on the strips of paper like they do in the sketch. I just know that mathematically it's not going to happen. So I decide to go ahead and trim down my background paper as well. I figured since I was matting everything in black on the foreground of the paper, the background should probably be matted in black as well. And this is something that I really do enjoy doing, is just matting everything in black. It definitely gives it that pop. It definitely gives it that contrast between the pattern papers. And I've got a lot of color and a lot of pattern and just a lot going on here. So I think that this black cardstock actually calms the layout a little bit too, because there's a lot. you guys, this is a lot of glitter. So I decide to have the two teal pieces as bookends. So I have the stars on the left and the teal paper on the right. And I'm just trying to figure out how I want to get these three photos. And I don't think I actually truly figure it out until I get the photos matted. At this point, this is how I think it's going to be. But I'm just like, what in the world am I going to do? And I don't just want to leave two photos on there because it just feels weird. Like I did an awful lot for two really poorly composed photos. But you know, sometimes you gotta scrapbook those photos that are just a little bit funky. So I am going to go ahead and trim down some cardstock to 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 inch squares. And just like the rectangular strips, this is going to give me an even black border all the way around the photo. So I'm going to use some ATG to put the photos down onto the black cardstock. And then once I get it figured out, I'm going to go ahead and use some Nouveau Deluxe on the photos that are going over top of the glitter glaze. And that is because the dry glue, the tape glue, doesn't really like to stick to the glitter glaze. You got to get that wet glue in there so that it really gets in the nooks and crannies of the glitter glaze. Look, nooks and crannies, like it's an English muffin. It really gets in the nooks and crannies of the glitter glaze and adheres it down really, really well. So I'll go ahead and put that down. And there's my Nouveau Deluxe. Love this stuff so much. I'm so glad it came back into stock and I was able to get it for the shop. And now I'm going to go ahead and those two squares that I put the fun foam on, I'm going to go ahead and get them down as well. And I decided to switch up the photo so that the fireworks photo with the blue kind of tinge to it was in the center of the other two. And I'm going to overlap the two top photos and then go ahead and place that second photo right underneath. And I really like the way that this looks. I like the pops of black, and now I got to figure out what my title is going to be kind of hanging out on top of this doily. I thought I was going to bring in these little curvy arrows. I thought it would be something fun, but ultimately I decide not to do that. I also decide not to put any kind of circular tabs or anything like that on the photos. I do put a little tab that says July, just in case you couldn't figure out that these were 4th of July photos. I also grabbed these larger Jolie's Boutique rhinestones. I'm going to just cut a strip of them and place them down on the diagonal striped paper that doesn't have any glitter. So basically, I still want to glitz it up. I still want to make it a little bit fancy and all of that, even though I don't have the glitter glaze on it. So I went ahead and kind of put it almost centered in the strip of paper. It's not exactly centered, but I also did not want this lines of sequins ending on the edge of the doily here. I wanted it to be inside, so I went ahead and did that. Now I'm going to go to my stash and kind of figure out which letter stickers I'm going to use. And I've probably used this Pop Bang Sizzle title 3 or 4 times over, maybe 3 or 4. Yeah, 3 or 4 times over the albums that have started since 1998. And that doesn't bother me. I don't mind using the same title. I'm certain, absolutely certain, I have used the same title multiple times before. But I just really like the way Pop Bang Sizzle sounds for a fireworks title. It just, I don't know, it just makes me happy. So I'm going to go ahead and use these square tile stickers for Sizzle. And for a minute there, I kind of forget how to spell. But that's okay. It comes back to me. So now I have Sizzle, and now it has come to do the word bang. And I'm going to do that in these black foam letter stickers. So all of my letters are capitalized, and I think that that is just fine. Now it's time to do the pop, and I am using these glitter teal thickers, and since I don't have any more O's, and I've already used the zeros as well, I'm going to use a Q and chop off the little Q tail. And I know for a fact somebody told me before what they were called, and I can't recollect, so it's going to be a Q tail. Maybe, was it a tail? I don't remember. I really don't remember, and I don't feel like Googling right now. I was thinking about bringing in those big, huge sequins, but ultimately I decided this layout's got a lot going on, even though there's really not a lot to it. And that is going to do it, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you again real soon for another video.